the Wolverine. Coach Merez, in his toughness, I guess, if you could talk about what that brings to your team, and then also how has he expanded his game this year? He was just talking about it, and the freedom that you guys have given him to explore different things and improve his skill.
Yeah, he's earned the right to do what he does based on his work. He's incredibly consistent and thorough with everything that he does. And this summer when he shot threes, they didn't go in very often. And he continued to work on his balance, the rhythm of the shot, and his mechanics. And there are certain times this year when I was actually disappointed when he would turn one down because we felt so confident in his shooting ability and in his decision making with the ball. It's just he's getting rep after rep every single day, and live play to make decisions, and for a number of reasons. He's a great screener. We feel like if we can get the other bigs away from the basket, and obviously playing with the size that we do, everyone can't be in the paint with the way we play. So he's given, him and Adaya both given us real lineup versatility because of their ability to dribble, pass, and now adding a jump shot to that.
Coach, you're going to stay in that same part of the room, third row, left.
Hey, Dusty. Evan Miakow of Mia.com. When you compare your team's personality with Arizona, there's a very interesting contrast, at least when you kind of watch it on screen. Their group doesn't show a ton of expression, very calculated. Your group is a lot more expression, more passionate, maybe a bit of goofiness. Can you give us some more insight into the dynamics of your team and how you've played into that this season and how that's helped you?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, I would say that's their natural personality traits, and we always try to channel who they are on game days and on the practice floor, in the film room. But I think we play with a great deal of intensity and passion, and we want that to be contagious. And I think if you watch our team play, the things that we value as a staff and as a program are the things that they really react with great passion and energy, the extra pass, the hustle plays. If you come to our practice and there's a game-winning three-point shot, there's a good percentage of the managers and players not on the floor are running to the guy that made the invisible play, whether it's a great screen, whether it's the guy that created the advantage that led to the shot, whatever the case. We always feel like the guy that made the shot's going to feel pretty good about what just happened. We want to make sure everyone else feels great about their role and how it all transpired.
We're one row back to Robert.
Hi, Dusty. Robert O'Connell, Wall Street Journal. When you came over to Michigan, coming off an 8-win year, what was the single most transferable thing that you could bring to this program from your FAU experience that you learned there? And then what was the benefit of being able to apply that with the funds and backing of a major Big Ten program, obviously, a well-funded institution?
Well, the well-funded, I'll just begin with the end. The well-funded institution, we felt like there was a great upside with Michigan and their passion for athletics. There are a lot of places that if you win, then we'll get it for you. And there are other places that say, we'll get it for you so you can win. Michigan was a little bit in between, where I think a lot of the academic institutions were late to the NIL game for a number of reasons. I think when you look across the board, across the country with the private and state schools that are academic-minded first and foremost, they were late to the game when it comes to NIL. And Michigan, I don't think, was any different for whatever reason. There's a lot that go on behind the scenes. As far as what our staff could bring, I think it was a nice segue because we were in the middle of this changing landscape, and we were on the other end of it. We were the school that we had really good players and a really good team, and we had all these other outside influences coming to grab our guys. And so we saw it from the other spectrum, and we've just always tried to separate how we feel and what it does to us to any of these equations. For example, you hear the low major coach complain about losing the low major players to high major, and then the first opportunity that they can go to high major, they do. And we've just always kind of felt like, let's just take a step back and look at this from like a human being standpoint. And so we just felt like we knew the full landscape of what this was, and we had a broader perspective because that year we went from basically being a low major to a mid major to a high major in 2 calendar years. Hope that answers your question.
Coach, we'll go a row behind Robert to Jeff.
Jeff Borzello, ESPN. Like Tommy Lloyd, you've been linked to the North Carolina vacancy. Unlike Tommy, you have not spoken about it as much. So I'm just kind of curious how you respond to the speculation.
After last year, I decided that I'll never, ever respond to any job speculation. I had already agreed to terms with Michigan, was 100% done, and I made the comment that I was flattered about a certain job opening because of my background. And that was misconstrued, and so I just decided I'm never going to comment on any job that I don't have. I think it's well documented how happy I am at Michigan. Obviously, my private life, my personal life, my family, their happiness is very important. So, yeah, I love it at Michigan, but you'll never hear me comment on any other job unless Michigan lets me go, and then I'll comment on every job.
Center of the room, row 3.
Hey, Coach. Chris Brown, AZ Bandcat Sports. Yesterday, we asked you about the trio of freshmen that Arizona has, but want to take it back a couple of years to when you faced Arizona and Tommy Lloyd in Vegas when you were with FAU. What do you remember about kind of a Tommy Lloyd coach team facing Arizona, and how have you seen that team or his program evolve from then to now?
Well, they were really good then, and they're really good now, and the margins are really small. I don't know how far they advanced that year and how compared to now, but there's not much difference. They were really good then. That game was a double overtime game. A lot of people thought it was the best college basketball game of the year as far as entertainment and the timing of it. Everyone was watching because it was during the holidays, and it was a nationally televised game. Looking back, I remember at the time how good I thought Mo Kravis was. And it's crazy to think he's just a junior now, because I felt like he was a budding superstar then. And they had Ballo, they had some other guys, and then they had Larson, and they had Keshad Johnson, who are now with the Heat, and then Boswell, who's with Illinois, was on that team. I think they're built very similar to those guys. And then Jaden Bradley played a reserve role for that group, and obviously he's continued to improve. They're built very similarly. KJ is very, the big body physical guards, the size and the paint, and the style of play is, it's almost exactly the same. It's much like Gonzaga. They know what they're looking for. The simplicity allows them to be creative together. And so, we continue to try to find nuggets or an edge, and all we found is incredible consistency.
We're going to go up front to the right to Indianapolis, and I know there's a bunch right behind you guys. If you guys can raise your hands, just remind me. There we go.
Yeah, Zach Osterman, Indianapolis Star. You've gotten this question at various points, probably really the last few years, but you've always wanted to play with size. From your perspective as a coach, sort of what are the keys to being able to do that without sacrificing court spacing? I know it's more than just being able to shoot the ball, but how do you sort of play with the size that your teams tend to without losing that ability to spread defenses out, without sort of sacrificing efficiency offensively?
Well, before the season started, when Yaxel told us he was coming back, we immediately start brainstorming and trying to figure out the best way for us to play from a spacing standpoint. And can we switch 1 through 4? How much of our system can we keep with these guys? And a lot of it we don't know until they get there, and we can evaluate them and their game. But from an offensive standpoint, we went into this year planning on playing much like the Gonzaga system, the Arizona system. There's been several schools adopt this similar spacing concept, and that's how we were intending on playing this year. And once our guys got to campus, we felt like there were some different things we could unlock with this group, and so we ended up pivoting from that. And credit to our guys, they've continued to find solutions to problems that aren't easily solved. And I've given a lot of credit to our success to our team intelligence and basketball IQ.
That same area of the room, 1 row back.
Chris Ballas with the Wolverine on 3. Dusty, along those same lines, what was it about Adai, other than his obvious size, that really intrigued you and said, this is the guy I want, the big guy I want from the portal?
We love passing. I think passing is a great barometer of basketball IQ, and guys that also enjoy passing. That it's fun to share. And I think Adai, Chris, I don't know who wrote it. One of our beat writers wrote a story that Adai recalled one of his youth coaches saying that an assist makes 2 people happy. A basket usually makes 1 person happy. So that, and then the obvious rim protection. We like the system that we have. And so if the pieces fit then we would like to continue doing the things we do because we understand the nuance and we understand all the different ways that they can attack you. So we thought him and our drop coverage would be a defensive anchor for us, and that's proved correct. But yeah, he just seemed to have a great spirit about him. He had a joy and a happiness, and we try to recruit guys that seem like they're fun to be around. I mean, to quote a good friend of mine who's a coach, says, doing life together. I mean, we're doing life with these guys. We're with our players more than we're with our families, more than we're with anyone on this planet. So if you can be really good and they're talented and they can also be fun to be around and you guys can develop authentic relationships, and it's that much better.
If you have a question for Coach May, please raise your hand. Our next one's going to come on the left side toward the back.
Hey, Dusty, Jake Sanger with Maize and Brew. Every team in the Final Four has contributing freshmen. You guys have Trey. Obviously, Arizona has multitude of them, and same with Illinois with Wagler and even Mullins with UConn. Do you think freshmen in this current age of the transfer portal, NIL, is something that you can continuously see making a big impact? And if so, how have you been able to see these freshmen make such a big impact on these superstar teams with so many great players?
Yeah, I think so. We've signed some freshmen, and we anticipate some of them will have an immediate impact. Some will have to probably be more patient and wait their turn and develop. Each year it's a little bit different. It seemed like during the COVID era, with the glut of older players, there weren't any freshmen contributing unless they played for Duke the year with Cooper Flagg and those guys. This year's been a complete 180 from that, where it seems like every time you turn on the television, one of the freshmen are contributing. And I think it's a testament to them finding the right system, but also these guys are mature beyond their years now. As I said yesterday, the Team USA basketball is a real thing. Playing for some of these basketball superpower prep schools it's a change. So you go from being the man at a high school, and then you go to one of these places, and you have to function with 8 other extremely talented players. And I think that's a microcosm of how they have to play for us when they get here, for the most part. But Trey's been awesome. He's been a very, very valuable contributor. He's a starter for us. He's evolved into a primary playmaker since LJ Queso went out. But like those other guys, like Burries and like Koa Pete, his maturity, his physical and mental maturity, and I'm speaking from a bird's eye view on those guys, I think Trey is very similar to the Arizona freshmen, that it's their physical, mental maturity that's allowed them to do this at this stage, on this stage.
Coach, we'll head up front on the left side.
Thanks. Carlos Menares, Detroit Free Press. Dusty, yesterday you talked about some of the benefits of the portal and recruiting, and it saves time. But what are some of the difficulties of using the portal as far as the high rate of turnover, and also getting guys coming in and getting them to blend with the veterans, making that all work together?
Anytime you talk about this, you're just going to get your mentions on social media filled up. First of all, as far as the transfer portal, when you look, I think everyone in here appreciates upward mobility, or at least to have the option of upward mobility. I have friends that they're excellent at their jobs and they decide to stay in Greene County and raise their family and live their life, and that's great. And then I have other friends that are incredibly talented in their field, and they chase their dream to Chicago, onto New York City, onto Wall Street, whatever they decide to do. And each person, especially now, has their own ambition, personal ambition, group ambition. And we just feel like when we bring people to Michigan, then we're here to help and serve them and help them be the absolute best they can be because they're in our environment. And if someone doesn't want that, we're not angry with them. Maybe they want more playing time. Maybe the academic schedule's too rigorous, whatever the case. It's not a lifetime sentence when you choose. Hopefully, we have guys that want to stay here, but there's just times whenever our style of play doesn't fit with what they want. If you're a ball-dominant person who wants a 70% usage rate, you probably shouldn't come here, because history says we're going to have a very balanced and unselfish lineup. And so I just think like we make all these broad I guess, accusations towards this or towards that, and it's whoever we bring in, we're gonna try to play a great brand of basketball. We're gonna help them become better citizens and better basketball players and hopefully future professionals with whatever they want to do. Does that answer?
Let's get the microphone back.
But time is our most valuable. Like people talk about money, time is our most valuable asset. So when I say we're saving time, we don't waste time with all the other things. We still have to do our research. We still have the intel. We still have to spend an inordinate amount of time. We just don't have to spend it the way we used to.
Carlos, you wanted to follow?
Yeah, just a quick follow on that. Just as far as getting that all to work together with the team, as far as, I don't know if you'll find a happier locker room anywhere in the tournament right now with Big Goof and Yaks and all these guys, and then Will Cheddar and Namari and talked about some of the veteran leadership that had to calm things down when things got too competitive sometimes in practices. Making that all work together, I think there's a lot of perception that you just bring in some top-rated stars and go, and you guys win, and that's it. But you've got to make young people learn how to work together. Like, what was the challenge, and what was your approach to making that work?
Each year is completely different, and it's a community. It's our staff. It's the returning players. It's everyone around our guys. It's their families. We try to make sure everyone feels important and valued in our program, and then we just stress the importance of doing it together, and you can get there, you can chase your dream doing it this way. It's proven, and now we have proof of concept we have guys getting drafted. We won a Big Ten tournament championship last year. We finished second in the regular season and made the Sweet 16. So we just feel like if you come here, you can achieve your individual goals while doing it this way, and you probably have a better chance of doing it this way. But I think that the way we recruit them, and then the way we spend a crazy amount of time when they get here, and then we also just want them to be who they are. Obviously, they're best if they're acting like idiots. We don't want them to be an idiot and say, well, I'm just being me. We want them to be the absolute best they can possibly be, and when they mess up, then it's an educational process to fix it. But look, these guys are all in their locker room. That's their true personalities. Rich kids, poor kids, international kids, domestic kids, whatever the case. That's the beautiful thing about college. I mean, you learn more from the people you're around than you do. And in my opinion, I learned more from the people that I was exposed to than I did in any of my history classes.
We're going to go to the back of the room on the right side, and while we're asking the question, we're also going to welcome in Trey McKinney and Will Cheddar. They're going to take their seats up here on the dais. Go ahead with your question.
Hey, Dusty. Chancellor Johnson with the Big 12 over here. When it comes to Tommy Lloyd, particularly on the X's and O's and the schematics, what stands out to you when you watch him on tape?
A real solid plan that fits their personnel and their pace, their execution, their physicality. They play to their strengths. I think those are all signs of a well-coached group, and they change a little bit each year, but they stay to who they are. Their identity stays the same, and they change just based on their personnel.
We've reached the part of this news conference where we're going to switch over to questions from the Full Court Press program. Those are the journalists with the black lanyards. Looks like we have a question in the center of the room. We're going to use the yellow microphone. These are questions for Will or Trey or Coach May.
Hi, Coach. Cooper Van Driesch, right here from the University of Notre Dame. My question is, being from Indiana, what does it mean that you get to compete for a national championship in Indianapolis, in a state where basketball is so synonymous with sports in general?
It's really cool just to be back here in a full circle moment, but I've been gone for so long. Yesterday, probably the coolest part was looking up and seeing all the Colt players that I grew up idolizing and watching every Sunday. So other than that, just happy to be here with our guys.
Full Court Press questions for the student athletes are for Coach May. We'll go up front on the left side.
Jenny Bartlett from Franklin College. So with coming to the Final Four, it's so full of emotions and so full of energy and just so full of life. What would you say is kind of the emotions that are going through your head today, and how do you think that's going to affect you on the court? And this is for all three.
We're going to check out Will's emotions, then Trey, and then Coach May.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, the biggest thing is being able to kind of balance those emotions. Obviously, you have the emotions of, making it, winning the Elite Eight game, and then being able to kind of flip your focus from that to, Arizona, and, making sure that, you're not getting too high, too low, and, you're staying focused in, the midst of, the kind of circus of things that are happening here.
Trey.
Yeah, I would say just like Will, I mean, you don't want to put too much emotion in the game, and you want to be kind of level-headed throughout this tournament because I mean, there's so much thrown at you, and there's so many different distractions outside of basketball. So I think the most important thing for our team is just keeping it mostly about basketball and why we came to the stage here.
Coach.
I'll speak for Trey and I. I think he and I have great emotional regulation. Will, on the other hand, struggles with impulse control at times.
Will for a rebuttal.
That's fair.
Okay. Continuing with full court press questions, we have 2 in the front. We have some in the middle. We'll get to everybody's.
Jacob Leslie with the University of Nebraska Omaha, and I mentioned this to Coach Underwood as well, but strength of schedule goes a long way with building character of programs like Michigan, like Illinois. You guys matched up with Duke, Gonzaga in the non-conference, but then the Big Ten as a whole just overperformed their expectations. And I want to look at the Nebraska game. You guys trailed basically the entirety of the game. How are you guys able to bear down and not kind of falter in that moment? And then how do these close games with these top-notch opponents help you guys set up for success?
And that's for all 3?
Yes.
Okay. We'll go Will, Trey, and then Coach again.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the Big Ten in general, that conference, that conference schedule that we had, and some of those games that we had to play. Yeah, you can look at the Nebraska game at home, or at Purdue, or at Illinois, at Michigan State. I think that really just prepares you for going back to emotions. You got to stay level-headed. There's going to be runs. So just kind of sustaining those and staying true to your team, and staying unselfish is big, and prepares you for moments like this.
Trey.
Yeah, I think the Big Ten was it was really amazing this year. I mean, we played so many different talented teams, and so many teams that just had so many different schemes. And I think those close games, like Will said, like Michigan State and Nebraska, really helped us for when we're in these tight games in the NCAA tournament, because, I mean, you don't want to, fold under pressure. I mean, you want to stay as level-headed as you can, even though it's really hard to in the moment when the crowd gets into it and stuff like that. But I think our fans have done a really good job of being here for us and supporting us throughout this tournament.
Coach.
Yeah, when we do our schedule, you always look at it and think it's going to be daunting. This year, we scheduled with the mindset that we're going to get better based on the competition and who we're playing. And we're not going to worry about win-loss record. We're not going to worry about anything other than just playing against the best and seeing where we are in November, December, January. And actually, I looked last night, and we finished with the #2 strength of schedule in the country behind Alabama. And so for these guys to go through one of the greatest years in Big Ten history without losing a road game, and then to go through the #2 schedule in the country with our record is a testament to their consistency, their togetherness, their ability to elevate their play. You mentioned the Nebraska game, and this is carried over from last year. The last 5 minutes of close games, when the stakes are the highest and the senses are elevated the most, these guys, they perform at such a high level when it comes to rebounding, loose basketballs, all the winning plays. These guys have the ability to elevate their play, and they've done it night in, night out. So it gives us a lot of confidence down the stretch of a close game that we know we have another gear that we can kick it into when it's winning time.
We'll go to the third row center. 2 questions, both on the yellow mic.
Emily Tuttle, Cedarville University, specifically for Will and Trey. Your team has been winning games, especially in the tournament, very convincingly, especially with Tennessee's win. How do you stay from getting complacent, especially defensively, when you're up by such a large margin?
Will first, please, then Trey.
Yeah, I think we talked about complacency a lot throughout the year. Staying sharp, making sure that we're continuing to acknowledge what got us to this point. What playing style got us to this point, our unselfishness, things like that. After that Purdue loss in the Big Ten tournament, I think we had a good look in the mirror. We realized that we needed to get tougher, needed to kind of go back to some of those characteristics, that led us to, win big games. And I felt like we came out and our team acknowledged that great in the first round, second round, and then kind of led into the Sweet 16 Elite Eight.
Trey, your thoughts?
I would agree with Will. I think those losses, every one of those 3 losses we had really stung, and we felt that, and we just never really wanted to feel that again. So I think that really helped us with our consistency throughout games and being able in the second half to, look at the teammates and say, like, we have to really lock in and give our best defensively, because we know anything can really happen on the stage, when the stakes are highest in March and April. So, yeah.
We'll go to that same third row.
Hi, I'm Jenna Plank from Butler University, and this question's for Coach May. As you head into your second Final Four of your career, how do you feel the expectations or the pressure has changed since your time at Florida Atlantic?
Personally, I don't really feel pressure. The expectations have certainly changed. I think if we would have gotten by San Diego State, then we would have been the underdog. Here, we're probably a favorite. I'm not sure, with expectations to compete for a national championship. So I think that part has changed. But as far as the pressure, we just feel like we've done our work. These guys have put in the work from June until now for us to be in position that we're in. And we're so process-oriented that we're going to be more focused on staying in character and doing our absolute best and trusting that that's going to be enough.
Second row. We're using the black microphone.
Hi, I'm Luke Shepard from Franklin College. This question is for Coach. Your 4 years at Indiana University as a team manager, being under Coach Knight, I'm sure you've answered this, in other spots, but what did you take from that? And especially in moments like this on such a big stage, what were some of the lessons and just skills that you've gained from that experience?
Each experience is so different. I've referred back to almost countless examples of what I've learned from Coach Knight. As an assistant, I don't feel like I really use them daily or weekly, and then you become a head coach, and it's almost like your parents, where you instantly start referring back to all the lessons you've learned. I've spoken with some of his old assistants about what his process was for the Final Four, what he was looking at from a scouting advantage, and so it just, now we have access to any, obviously coaches that are at the top of our profession. So just taking on the lessons we learned from him, the lessons you learn from other coaches, and try to do the best you can for your group and make them your own.
If you have a full court press badge and you have a question, we will go to that question.
Kira Halfman with St. Mary's College. This is for Will and Trey. You guys have made it so far in the season. How has the team culture developed throughout the trials of the season?
We'll ask Will first, then Trey.
Yeah, I think our team has done an amazing job at kind of staying together and, really relying on, that chemistry that we built early on in the summer. That's when a lot of the trust is built. So, when we do hit, bumps in the road, I feel like we really, fell back on that, whether it's, going to a team dinner or, getting together and, making sure that everyone's locked in for practice the next day. I think that we've done, a really good job of making sure that, adversity, isn't a roadblock for us, just a minor hiccup, so, that we're able to kind of push through.
Trey.
I would say we just, we have the right people around this program, and we have the right players. We have players that are really selfless, and you could tell that, even when we were under one roof in the summer. So I think it just really carried over from the summer and the fall when we were putting all that work in together and, all that sweat and that we had. So I think we have a really selfless team, and, it starts to show, every one of these games.
Any additional questions from Full Court Press for Coach or the players? Here we go.
Hi, I'm Reggie Holguin from the University of Indianapolis. This one's for Coach. So as a coach, I'm sure you'd agree that every game is just as important as the last or even the next. How do you keep yourself motivated to come back and coach these guys?
We talk about all year that the biggest game of the season is the next game. It's always the biggest game of the season. As far as motivation, I think I'm a lot like these guys. I'm not really sure what motivates Will or Trey to come in the gym each day. We're all motivated by something different, but because of the habits we've developed over time, it's all we know. When these guys walk in a gym, it's time to work. Now, we try to put together a very well thought out plan. But as far as motivation, I don't know what motivates our guys, but I know they just get to work. We talk about inspiration more than motivation, though. When these guys make a hustle play or pick up full court or have a big-time defensive stop, we talk about that's inspiring versus motivating.
One more question in the second row.
This question is for Will and Trey, and Coach answered this while you guys were off stage. But what do you guys see in just the matchup against Arizona? What are some of the things that you guys are focusing on in terms of just going into the matchup? What do you expect, and what are you guys looking to truly execute at?
Will first, then Trey, then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, I think the one thing that stands out to me about them is just their relentlessness for 40 minutes. We've had times this year where we've had a few mental lapses for 2 or 3 minutes where we're not playing our best basketball. Especially when we may get a lead, our focus can sometimes falter a bit. So I think that the big thing for us is just to put together 40 minutes of high quality, unselfish basketball where we're gonna like where we are at the end of the day.
And Trey, final answer.
I think their physicality stands out, and the way that they play and they sustain physicality for 40 minutes. So, but I think we really got a good sense of that throughout the Big Ten Conference this season. So, I think it's something that we've seen throughout every game in the Big Ten, and it's really helped us be able to adjust and get better throughout the season.
We want to thank Trey McKinney, Will Cheddar, and head coach Dusty May for joining us here in the main
Appreciate it.
interview
Great questions.
room. Yeah, very good, guys. They're going to head out to open practice, 1 to 150 out on the